everybody's always having some kind of emotions all the time, unless you're dead, right, or unconscious. Someone who thinks powerfully in the space of the world. We are frightened to let our young people have that power. They learn to appreciate and manage those capacities within their own selves. You could say it this way, right? So whatever you're having emotion about is what you're thinking about, right? And whatever you're thinking about, you could hope to learn about, remember something from, right? Understand differently. So the key question for educators is everybody's always having some kind of emotions all the time, unless you're dead, right, or unconscious. What are people's emotions about in this space? If the emotions, because whatever those emotions are about, that is what you're learning about. So if the emotions are about the outcomes, did I get it right? Am I going to flunk? Did I get an A+? I'm so smart. I'm so stupid. Any one of those, right? If those are the main drivers, then that is what you're learning about. If the emotions are about the actual ideas in play, the math, the physics, the why does the ball roll down the ramp? Wait a minute, that's the same as why the moon goes around. You know what I mean? Like, when the emotions are about ideas, then what you're engaging with is learning about ideas. And so what I would argue is that in setting up the kind of accountability system we have taught people that their emotion should be about these high stakes accountability measures, which means that's what we're learning how to think about. Perform, not how to think about the ideas, not the intrinsic power of using math to understand the world in a different way. So how do you engage kids, right? You engage kids by setting out rich problem spaces problems that invite them to try to engage with something that piques your curiosity, that's meaningful to them, or have them bring in, where the kid who really hates it, like, what is it that you do find interesting, kid, right? Start there and start using your academic skills in a way that will give you power to do what it is you're interested in doing. That's the way in. Use your writing, use your math, use your persuasive argument skills, use your filmmaking skills, whatever it is, to tell the story of something that you find deeply, meaningfully powerful to understand. And all of a sudden, you need the math. Kids actually say things like, there's this lovely long quote from a Sudanese immigrant kid in one of these New York schools with the performance assessments. And he says he got this problem called walking to the door, which is basically Zeno's paradox, right? You get halfway to the door, halfway to the door, halfway to the door. Do you ever get to the door? Why or why not, right? And they spent months learning the math that would help them get at that problem. And he talks about how I had a problem, he says, and I had to learn fractions. I had to, in order to be able to solve the problem I had. And as I engaged with fractions and that problem, I got fascinated, he says, by finite and infinite. And these ideas were driving my need to learn to do fractions, right? So we've got the cart before the horse. I'm not saying you don't have to learn math, or you don't have to learn to read or write or do all these other kinds of skills, but we make those, which is in the horse's cart, what's in the cart, we call that the metric of the education system and the aim of it, when in fact it's the quality of the horse. Can that horse pull the thing, right? That's the development of the person. And what they put in their cart then serves that development. It's the toolkit of ways of knowing and understanding that come with you as you move into the world. But this takes real developmental skill on the part of educators, right? Who are not supported or resourced or trained to think about development in these ways. I mean, so you asked, when does this fall off? It really depends on what school system you are and in what demographic you are when it falls off. But for almost everybody, except for the privileged few who are in very progressive alternative schools, it falls off by adolescence, which is when school gets serious. And it's also, ironically, when developmentally kids are developing the neural capacity and the psychosocial capacity and the drive to infer complex narrative meaning from the things they are doing. These are a statement about what I believe about sustainability and about sports and about adults and counterculture, right? And as we grow into a space where we're driven to try to, challenge and think about big meanings and engage with perspectives and emotions and social issues and broad, important existential questions, be they in physics or be they in art or be they in the social civic domain, right? What do? We double down on controlling the input and the output transactional mechanisms that count as quote unquote academic rigor and achievement, right? We start to ask kids, what's the name of the servant who shows up in the scene in Great Expectations, right? Is it Molly or is it Maria, right? And it's, who the heck knows? And that is not the point of reading Great Expectations, right? We take away because we're afraid. As educators, as society, we've got this narrative around young people's in particular, but everyone's propensity to build and construct meaning in these spaces and self in these spaces. That agency frightens us because we're worried they're going to take risks, they're going to do something stupid, they're going to fall off the track, they're going to not make it in the traditional system. And in trying to protect them and shield them from their own curiosities, their own dispositions for meaning making, we, I would argue, actually stunt their ability to grow themselves to the point where we have mental health crises, literally crises in mental health right now in adolescents across demographic groups. And it's worse in girls. Yes, we don't fully understand why that is. Get some, suggestions. What we're really doing is actually producing people who are gutted of their own inner drive to become someone who thinks powerfully in the space of the world. We are frightened to let our young people have that power, which is the role of adults, is to wrap around young people and help them learn to be reflective, to be systematic, to be rigorous with themselves as they develop the capacities and dispositions to deconstruct their own beliefs, to deconstruct their own aims and goals and the ways they understand the world, and to rebuild them iteratively over and over in this sort of intellectually humble, curious way, where we're constantly querying ourselves, constantly querying other people, where we're willing to sit with uncertainty in complex problem spaces and think through the possibilities rather than settle quickly onto one solution. What does school expect you to do? Settle immediately onto one solution, which, by the way, is the solution I already had in mind when I gave you the question, right? As compared to sitting with young people and allowing them this, in safe and appropriate ways, the space in which to actually grapple with complex, powerful questions. When kids develop the proclivities to do that, they learn how to manage those very human capacities that we've been talking about the whole time that can lead to, terrible evil as well as amazing virtuousness. They learn to appreciate and manage those capacities within their own selves. The intellectual curiosity that they're keeping alive. They have this disposition we're talking about cultivating.